EM tries taking my skateboard and my mate's BMX because her EK ran in front of us and we hit him. Yo Redditor and anyone else who's gonna read this. I've been reading the EP stories for a while and never came across one myself, but oh boy I did the other day. Context: I am a 13-year-old living in Northern England, big up Bradford, but do not whatsoever fit the role of being a chav like the stereotypes of up here. Although it says in the title that my mate and I ride and stuff, we don't ride Carreras and don't carry knives. We just want to get good at what we do. I'm 13, but I also happen to be 5'9" and I have a super deep voice. This comes in later. The juicy story. So this happened very recently. Recently, we've had great weather up north, a rarity, and me and my friend have been going to the local skate park almost every day after school to practice what we love doing. The skate park isn't very big, but it has a fantastic surface and a pretty good half pipe from dropping in, etc. On this particular day, we got there and both verbally groaned. Midgets. They swarmed around on crappy razors and other design masterpieces from eBay, devouring the ramps and snaking people like vipers. Snaking is cutting in front of people when those people are about to drop in or whatever. We looked at each other and walked forwards with wary steps. I was putting my helmet on and was about to drop in when I noticed my chucks were a bit too loose, so I sat down and got my Allen keys. F said he was going to the shop, so I gave him a quid and asked for a Dr. Pepper. I did some kick flips and nollie flops to get warmed up by the side of the park. I did a couple of circuits of the park, doing a few tricks at the half pipe and everything else. On my third circuit, a little kid, EK, ran onto the park and in front of me. I swerved out of the way but clipped his shins with my board. He seemed to be fine, if shaken, but I'd gone straight off my board and had a huge graze on my left arm. I swore and stood back up, looking over to see if EK was alright. EM ran over to me and started yelling at me. The following conversation ensues. "What the hell do you think you're doing? Deliberately crashing into my baby like that?" Your son literally ran in front of me when I was minding my own business, doing something that doesn't harm anyone if everyone is respectful and sensible. I was watching the entire time and you 100% definitely went into him on purpose. I pull out my phone. "I don't have time for this, Mom. I just want to skate, so sorry little guy," I said to EK. "I didn't mean to hit you, but for next time, try not to run over the big track here, cause it can get you hurt, yeah?" "My son did nothing wrong. Why are you verbally berating him when he was clearly in the right here?" I'm already tired of this conversation. "Okay, I'm in the wrong. I apologise for hitting your son and hope we can just go our separate ways and forget about this entire ordeal." She seemed to accept this and walked off. My friend came back at that point and laughed his head off, saying he'd been watching from a distance and that was the most hilarious thing he'd ever witnessed. I hit him and took my drink. We messed about for a couple of minutes, then got on with it. I don't mean to brag, but I can skate pretty well. I've been practicing a 720 gazelle flip and just doing basic lines on the half pipe and such. We were having a good time when the EM rocked up again, this time with a police officer. I continued skating, just trying to ignore the EM. When I got back to my friend, the officer waved me over and I complied, trying not to seem wary of what he was going to say. "This woman here tells me you have deliberately hit her child with your board and then tried to assault her. Could I hear your version of the story, please?" EM visually slouches and looks a heck of a lot grumpier than before. So basically, her kid ran in front of me and I swerved out of his way. I clipped him with my board and sent myself flying, grazing my arm. I show the officer my graze. Then this lady yells at me for assaulting her son and I try to keep the peace and give her kid some friendly advice on not running into a skate park. She then yells at me again for yelling at her kid, at which point I've had enough and tell her that I was totally in the wrong and I hope she can forgive me. I yell for my friend. My mate here can confirm this as he was watching. He confirms this is true and another couple of guys chip in and say that EM is the liar here. The officer gives her a warning for wasting police time and then wanders over to the ice cream van. After EM's sure he's gone, she whispers into EK's ear and then wanders past me and towards my stuff. EK then proceeds to run onto the park again. I grab him round the waist as there's a guy about to smack straight into him and pull him backwards. The EM has been watching this happen and then proceeds to yell, "Pedo! This kiddie fiddler just touched up my son! This man is touching my son! 20-year-old pedo!" The officer comes running and tackles me to the ground. I play rugby, so it's no biggie that I just got slammed to the ground, but still, it was a shock. "What the F you done, female dog?" Gotta keep it PG, thank you very much. "I just saved your son from a broken arm, and you're calling me a pedo? Plus, the fact that I'm 13 makes you effing mentally collapsed, doesn't it?" And for all you Americans, clapped pretty much just means stupid. Everyone else in the park is looking at this lady like she's a complete and utter div, another English word. The officer then yells at the lady for disrupting the peace again, and says that this is her final warning. At this point, point, she realizes she's messed up big time, so speed walks off with EK. 2 minutes later, she was back, and whilst I was having a drink and watching my friend do stuff on the halfpipe, she took my £120 custom built board and ran. I yelled what the heck she was doing and sprinted after her, full on rugby tackling her to the floor and pinning her down. My friend sprinted over and took my board from her, whilst the officer sprinted over again and arrested her. Mom, you are hereby under arrest for attempted theft, disturbance of the peace, and some other things I can't remember, something like wasting an officer's time. I get up from pinning her down and dust myself off. You might think it stops here, but that's a no from me, dog. The fun never ends. I'm shaken at this point. My friend walks over to me and shows me my board. One of my most prized possessions had been damaged. I was adjusting my trucks when she nicked the board so everything was loosened. One of the trucks had bent from being slammed against concrete. I showed the officer and he added something about property damage to her charges. Her entitled kid then walks over and shoves me, sending me to the floor as I'm unprepared and out of breath. The officer grabs his arm and holds me in place. I don't know the results of what the EM got charged with and I'm too lazy to give updates, but yeah, this was my run-in with a Karen/EP. Well, thank you very much, Josbob, for your submission to my subreddit. That entitled mum is something else. EP's racist remarks to a bunch of kids backfires remarkably. My dealings as a police officer with EPs issue 2. So this is my third post, second while I was on duty. This story was my first encounter with an EP. I actually don't know if this counts. This time around, the entitled parent was a guy, and even though his kid wasn't around, I knew he had a kid from the conversation we had. What is about to take place happens quite often, unfortunately, and as a result is the reason for many unnecessary phone calls to the police force. As a friend has told me who works the emergency phone lines, those guys are unsung heroes. The cast for today: EP entitled parent who was a dad, K1 kid 1, K2 kid 2. In total, there are about 9 kids that all interacted, but it was all pretty much said the same. So I will say KG is kid gang and me is me. Anyway, I was 2 hours into my shift and those first 2 hours were spent in the office gathering what we know about the case. Me being a little wet behind the ears, I was assigned family liaison. Not saying this job doesn't go to the more seasoned officers, it's just more than likely to go to the new guys. It can really give you the insight and empathy that is needed to do this job. So I don't actually drive. I'm learning, but I don't drive yet. So when I get assigned places, I usually take the tube, or if I'm lucky, I get dropped off by an officer who is just coming off duty. That day was my lucky day. An officer was coming off duty and dropping something off at another custody station, so it was me and another officer in a squad car going to where I needed to be. Funnily enough, where I needed to be wasn't a million miles away from where I actually lived. 2 roads, or blocks, away actually. I get out of the car, look at the address where to be, tap the top of the car as a goodbye, and off my colleague went. I get ready to start walking when I'm confronted by a large, 6 foot, 140 kilogram, oldish, late 50s man. About bloody time! I called you guys 20 minutes ago! I'm looking a tad confused because, to my knowledge, I was meeting a young woman and I was early. Sorry sir, I think you've got the wrong person. I'm here— What? You are the police, right? Just as a side note, one of my biggest pet peeves is people interrupting. It used to happen all too often when I first started this job. Well, yeah I am, but I'm actually in the middle of something right now, so I can't— You see those lads over there? He points at a group of teenagers that were doing what teenagers do, standing around and having a laugh at one another. They are predominantly black, with one white kid and one Asian kid, and they were all pretty much dressed in black too, and they were playing music. But it wasn't loud enough to cause an issue, not in my opinion anyway. They were also not in the way of anyone, they were in a park. Yeah? I want them gone. Who knows what they're up to? I don't want me or my kids to get stabbed by them. They have knives? Probably. Oh, so you don't actually know, you're just assuming that the— Well, they probably do. You know what alike. Go over there and move them along. I was taken aback by his blatant racism straight to my face about a group of kids that were doing no harm. For the sheer fact I was early for my meeting, I decided to humour him and go speak to the kids. Not to move them along, just to see what was what. As I walked over, EP followed me over, despite me telling him to stay put. Last thing I want is this guy barking orders from behind. Hey up, Zero to De Niro, how's it going? I knew these kids, matter of fact. 3 of them lived in the same building as me, and I made a point to talk to them anytime I saw them. The police currently have a real tough time in dealing with the U's, as my department call them. You guys should see the training that is put in place in order to help the old guard deal with them. It's laughable. Hey Zero, my mum wanted to thank you for the other day, for getting her shopping the other day.
You're welcome.
I said, hey, oh my god, are you serious, Siri? She wants to cook you tea one night. No worries about that, I'll speak to her sometime soon. You lads having a decent time? Not doing anything illegal, are you? Nah bro, we're just waiting for my friend's parents to come home so we can go to footy. The kids then started all talking among themselves as I turned to speak to a now open-jaw man. I'm not sure what he was expecting me to do, especially since being ridiculously racist. I sure hope he wasn't thinking I'd join in with his thoughts. He quickly composed himself and attained a very angry face. Right, you bunch of little ladies, you better freak off out of this area or this guy will call his colleagues and get you all arrested. The kids all stop and stare at this guy in disbelief. No, I won't, they're not doing anything wrong. What? You have to oblige to my request and move them along. You do serve the public, don't you? Please don't shout in my face. I do serve the public, yeah, but they are doing nothing illegal. Search them, they will have drugs or knives. Now, with that said, the kids started to get a little agitated with this guy, rightly so. But the last thing I needed was a load of kids about to kick off with this guy. It would be a shame to arrest these kids for beating him up. I turn to the kids and point this out to K1. Please control your emotions and your friends. You've got nothing to worry about, just let me deal with this. The kid turns and nods to his mates who are all cussing this guy out for being old and racist. Come on lads, let's go to the shop. Let Zero deal with it. With that said, he stopped and focused his attention on me. His angry look didn't drop. I knew I was in for some interesting insults. Heard it all before though. We as a force are quite hated by a lot of people. Usually people who do naughty things or card-carrying EDL members. Apparently we single these guys out. EP raises his hand and points straight in my face. The unit should be for them. You didn't search them. They could have had anything, you useless lady. Sir, if you carry on insulting me, I will have to place you under arrest for disturbing the peace and drunk and disorderly conduct. It was daytime, but you could smell the booze from a mile away. After I said this, he got right into my face and said, "You wouldn't frickin' dare. You arrest me and I'll have your job." I stand there with a little smirk and raise my arm to his side as an indication for him to step aside. Now, looking back, I get it. All he saw was me raise my arm. He must have assumed that I was going to grapple him or something. Before my arm was even halfway through its journey, he pushed me, hard. I didn't expect it. I was a little shocked that this guy had done this. I regained my composure as he was walking away from me, calling me for falling over. I ran behind him, grabbed both of his shoulders, span around and used his weight and my own to slam him onto the ground, with me kneeling with one knee on top of his back, using one arm to pin both his arms behind his back. My other hand was free to call for a unit to pick him up. As he was pinned to the ground, he was screaming all heck. He's gonna get me sacked, police brutality, broke his arm, which I didn't by the way. He has epilepsy, no he doesn't. He pays my wages, to find out later he's unemployed and had been for a decade. He was screaming all the things every drunk, middle-aged bloke says when they face arrest. It took 10 minutes for a unit to show up and arrest him, meaning I was a little late to my meeting and also a little scruffy from the scuffle. But after explaining, she laughed, I laughed, and I had a brew. All in a day's work. You know what, I don't think we've actually met a drunk entitled parent before, but this officer handled him extremely well, so kudos to OP. Anyway, if you enjoyed that video, go and check out another one right away. There are so many more Reddit stories on my channel for you to enjoy. Also, drop me a comment below if there's another subreddit that I haven't looked at yet and you want to see in the next video.